What's good? It is Sam, and I wanted to talk about Tesla's autopilot and then just Waymo and like GM's cruise automation. Not really specifically about either one of those, more than just touching on them here and there. But if this is the first time here, make sure you press that subscribe button and that little bell notification to be notified every time I post a video. It's on like Christmas every day in your phone, including July. And so when you look at Tesla and how they are operating versus how Waymo and some of these other companies are doing things, and you know how like data works, the amount of data that is collected, and there's different quality to data, but that's one piece. There's essentially two pieces to this. You have the amount of the data that's getting collected, right? So each company is doing their own research and they're collecting their own data, right? So if you have a bunch of test vehicles, you can collect, a lot of data. But if you have, like last year, Tesla produced, I believe it was like 250,000 cars, and they did like 100,000 plus in 2017. So there's a lot of Teslas on the road that are equipped with, I believe it's like 8 cameras and 12 ultrasonic sensors, or 12 cameras and 8 ultrasonic sensors, and a radar in the front, a bumper, just like the amount of data that you can collect. And then once you start using that data, you can start narrowing in on some of those confidence intervals, like when it's looked at from a statistical standpoint. The bigger the pile of data, you can really, really do some tremendous things. And now they're also getting image data. So yes, Google is a fucking behemoth. And I like Google, I really do. I use tons of Google's products. This video is going up on YouTube, and I've been following their self-driving project since 2009 or 10, but there was barely any data out there when it first came out, and now you're starting to see a lot more on it. But and they're collecting data too. I think they have like 600 or 700 vehicles on the road, and there's plans to increase that drastically. I'm just curious to see. It's such an exciting time in terms of where this is going to go, in terms of like the race to be, yes, Waymo is already first to market in terms of driverless taxi, but it's in a geofenced area and it's not that big of an area. It's still amazing. And that brings us to the second point is, yes, you could technically have the better product, right? Like maybe overall in that specific area, Google's product is better, right? Driving around in Arizona and Tempe and that other area, I forget the name of it, but consumers purchase these vehicles currently, and this landscape might change over the next several years or decade, but currently consumers purchase vehicles. And if you win consumers from the standpoint where their emotions are involved, and they perceive that a company is ahead of another company, because a lot of times when you talk to somebody who's driven a Tesla or has experienced autopilot, there's a big perception difference relative to other companies in terms of how they perceive Tesla relative to these other companies. So when you can combine the two of those, even if your solution, right, the autopilot versus the self-driving from Google, even if it was slightly less in terms of the technical abilities, or maybe Google can bring it out to say 6 decimal places in terms of the number of incidents that will happen per X number of miles, or whatever the case is, versus Tesla can only bring it out to 4. But the thing about that is the amount of data that you're able to collect, that changes super quick. And I think with Tesla, they're going to be maybe have a slightly inferior solution, at least initially, but they've won a lot of the branding, the perception of the public from the newcomers, right? Like, if you're watching this video, you're probably, a lot of your friends probably have no idea what Tesla is or anything about Tesla, but what Tesla's doing with their neural network and with the image, like creating to their vision, what is it, the Tesla vision neural network or whatever it is they're creating to be able to see and interpret the data from pictures, that's going to be fucking tremendous. And yes, maybe you get 1 out of 8 right at this point in terms of recognizing a stop sign or the lanes or something like that. The copious amount of data that they're collecting in millions of miles per day, and you have experts who are training your AI, right? Because you could think of self-driving as an AI. So you have these expert drivers, right? I know this area and I can drive this area safely. So I am an expert relative to this AI. Now, anytime where the data comes in and I press on the brake or I make a sudden change or whatever, those instances can be captured. Then that allows the neural network and the AI to learn from that to make better decisions going forward. And when you have 250,000 vehicles that are doing this, and they have 250,000 people who are experts at whatever it is in terms of driving in their neighborhood relative to the AI learns real quick versus 600 or even 1,000 for Google. Yes, that can be tremendous, and I would bet the actual quantity maybe per vehicle might be higher for Google, because I think they have a little bit more in terms of the different types of sensors. They use LiDAR and some other sensors as well, so they might be getting a different type of data which could be perceived as higher quality. But when you talk about just the sheer amount of data that you can use to learn and you can use your algorithms on, I don't want to say an absolute statement, but I feel that Tesla is very far ahead when it comes to these types of things. Right now, maybe recognizing a stop sign or a lane change is 1 out of 8. It does it correctly every single time. And when you're gathering, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 million miles a day of terms of data gathered, not only do you get that down from 1 out of 8 to 1 out of 20 to 1 out of 60 to 1 out of 1,000 to 1 out of 20,000 being accurate in terms of making the right decision, but you also get this tremendously detailed map of the entire world, anywhere your vehicles are being driven. So you get this asset that's being created just by the collection of this data that's not even getting factored into or talked about when it comes to the valuation, or that it comes to the conversation when Tesla's getting talked about. I don't know. Anyways, if you guys like this video, make sure you press that like button. If you guys have any comments, leave them down below. I'm curious to hear what you have to say, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.